All right, everybody. Welcome back to everybody's favorite OkieTradez study session. Well, let's just get right into it. Um, Today, first thing I want to talk about is something that I've noticed is happening. I'm not going to say necessarily that it's a theme, but it's something that I want to keep my eye out on. And what I'm talking about here is Birch, and I noticed that it's become the leader multiple days in a row. So let's just kind of look back a couple of days because we haven't had a study session in a while, so you didn't get to see this, but I do these every night for myself anyway. So the other day, so not yesterday. Yesterday there was really nothing to talk about other than my Invax trade, um, which I don't have time to get into today. But um, let's look at the other day here 2 days ago on Birch. So I wouldn't say it's a theme. Why? Because it's not happening every day. But anytime Birch takes off running, and at first I wasn't convinced that it was Birch. I just thought to myself, well, just watch for any random penny stock. And if it takes off, then start looking for other ones. But it does seem to be that Birch is the leader. Although it doesn't make the biggest move, it does seem to start things off. So, um, in my eyes, now all I have to do is just keep an eye on Birch, and well, if Birch takes off, then all I have to do is go find. And what's nice as well is that I'm noticing today, based off the other day's action and today's action, the stocks that followed it were the same too. So not exactly the same, but most of them. Again, let's look at Birch here. Birch takes off. So this is 2 days ago, around like 10:48, and then makes this huge move. Right? No need to get super advanced into it. Just want to make a point out here. The next thing I noticed was Peggy takes off. What time? About 10 minutes later, right? And then I also want to notice is that Peggy gave some nice wedges. So a couple wedges under VWAP, a couple wedges at VWAP. And then also, I didn't notice it the other day, but now I noticed it from reviewing is that, and we'll get into it later, but we'll mainly focus on the wedges for the start of the study session, but we'll get into what I noticed today. And I noticed it because of these study sessions, that's why I do it. Um, Once we get a stock that spikes well over VWAP, well, I should say a penny stock that is, and we get this first big pullback to VWAP, the first 1 minute candle to make a new high off of that pullback to VWAP gets a good solid bounce almost every time. But let's just look at these wedges. So what I like about the wedges are it gives you a clear entry as it breaks the wedge and a clear risk reward. You need a low, a higher low, a high, and the higher high gets you the entry, right? A spike, a low, a higher low, a high, and then the break of that high, a higher high, your entry. And then just a few minutes later, we see MBY. It perks up, creates a wedge, and then has a nice spike. I agree. Same thing. There was some of these kind of entries down here, but what's more clear, I know, hopefully I zoomed in on the last one, but if not, forgive me. Um, Nice wedge, and it takes off. Now, I'm not saying buy wedges. No, no, no. What I'm saying is if you see Birch, especially if you see Birch, but if you see any true penny stock, also another thing you really want to see with it is like 1 million volume candles, like 500K to 1 million volume candles, and you want to see a big spike. And that tells you now go look for other true penny stocks. And so specifically now that we've seen Peggy, MBY, Agri, ACAN, Well, not ACAN, but then there was also SLNA and G wave, which I didn't get it down here, but we'll see that today. So this was all 2 days ago, but there were some good solid moves after Bursch made a move, right? So today we see Bursch. Now we wouldn't have taken it right here. Actually, we wouldn't have taken Bursch at all, but we see Bursch makes a big move, big volume, takes off. So that tells us what? Let's go find another stock. Now, I was personally watching Kraken for a first bounce day, but I thought it got down too much. But I didn't take into account that Bursch could take off and make Kraken become a sympathy. And then coupled with the first bounce day pattern, which we'll get into that at the very end of the video, is going to make the play just that much better, right? So once we saw Bursch taking off, imagine I wasn't even watching Kraken, but I was just looking for stocks that were catching volume, true pennies, and I see Kraken pull up on the screen, right? Well, then my goal is to like look for any kind of entry. Now, typically I want a wedge, so there's no real wedge here. I need a low and a higher low, no higher low. So I can't take that. And then I'm really not doing the stair steppers yet. But when we get something, all right, we get like a clean push, right? And then it tells us that that stair stepper entry works, and we already know that sympathies are going to be good because Bursch took off, because we know sympathies were good the other day. We can put some, you know, confidence into this type of entry. Whoops. It's not necessarily a wedge, not necessarily, waiting on this one right here, but I mean, you could, I guess. And then the same thing, you could just kind of here or here, whichever way you're more comfortable with. And then obviously, you get this huge rip up and then you want to sell it. But notice the time, like when we start to get volume, 10:17. Burst, what time did it take off? 9:52. So the volume started to come in around like 9:55. So you had about 10 minutes to see that one. OBLG, what time did the volume start to come in? Around 10, 9:59. So, you know, you start looking for other stocks, right? Maybe you see this one. You probably don't see that there. But then when you get that spike up, maybe you try it right here or right here. Hard to say, and then it pulls back, probably cut, and then it goes off without you and you're annoyed. Well, but you see that it's strong, so you're like, okay, let's go find another one. And then you notice Peggy's like catching volume down here, right? And then you start to say, well, what do I see? We got wedges. And then boom, over these wedges takes off. Now, something I want to note that, which I mentioned earlier, I would get into is that I started noticing, well, I didn't notice it intraday, but during the study session earlier today, is that when we got these pullbacks, like we had a big spike and then a pullback to VWAP, it takes off, right? So a big spike pulls back to VWAP, takes off. And if you notice, what's the entry? We got all these red candles, so you might as well just wait for the first 1 minute candle to make a new high. So that's would be right here. So you get long 14 cents, and you'd be risking 13.3 basically. So not even a full penny, and you almost make 10 cents, almost 9 to 1 on that one, just off that bounce though. And you don't buy this bounce, why? Because look how far away it is from VWAP. So that's something that um, keeps you off of a loss right there. And then this one you don't take, well, because you don't have a first 1 minute candle for a new high, but you see that, well, they're still respecting that bounce at VWAP. And then check this one out, right? So maybe you missed all of these entries. Maybe you caught them, But say you did miss them or you caught them, but either way, big spike, pulls back to VWAP. Look how close it is. First 1 minute candle to make a new high right there. So that would be your entry, your stop. What is the entry? 14.2, 3. So 14.3, risking 13.9. So not almost half a cent, not quite half a cent. 17. So that's 3 cent gain. Basically 3 to 1 right there. No, 6 to 1. Yeah. Right. 3 cents divided by point. Let's look at the math here. 0.03 divided by 0.005. 6 to 1. Yep. All right. Good math. All right. Good job, Sean. But again, we get this nice pullback to VWAP, right? And we see a big bounce. We already saw it on Bursch. Pullback to VWAP, big bounce. OBLG pulls back to VWAP, big bounce. NBY, right? So now, especially like look at the disc. Like, all right, we had Bursch, SLNA, Peggy, NBY. So like we know, let's go check NBY, right? We don't have to wait for it to have volume. So you could definitely catch it down here. And then who's to say that you can't add these little stair steps, right? I mean, they are pretty much little mini wedges if you think about it. But even if you missed all that, this clean entry keeps happening, right? You don't buy it right here, first 1 minute candle to make a new high, you would get smoked right there. Why? Look how far that would have been from VWAP. What do you do instead? Wait for it to get close to VWAP. Then, it instantly spikes back up. And if it would have just taken off from there, well, you just miss it. But look, it doesn't break, doesn't make a new high, still doesn't make a new high. And then technically it would be your first minute candle to make a new high right there, but I probably would have waited for right here and then just risked it right here. So right there versus right here, and then I would have got paid, obviously. G-Wave, right? Another one. We know to look at G-Wave, it ran last time. So there's definitely potential for this entry. If not this entry, right? Look at this double wedge within the wedge. So you could potentially have 2 entries. 1 entry here, 1 entry here. Look at that one. Nice sideways action. But ascending sideways action wedge over that big wedge. Big spike. Say you missed all that. We still got this nice, first 1 minute candle off the VWAP. Now, after it spikes up right here and starts to come back, I probably would have cut it right there, right? But then look what happens. Pulls back the VWAP again, and then you get your entry right here. And since it doesn't spike, you have to risk your stop. But then once we get the strong spike, now you can risk your entry, and obviously it never tests, and then you get something, since you get paid for your patience, since you're holding, just waiting for a good spike, right? Because that's what everything else had, a really strong spike. Big spike, big spike, big spike, big spike, big spike. So we got to get us a big spike on this one too. Well, we're holding, it's holding up real nice. Clean wedge right here, right? And then takes off. There's our big spike. So that's kind of how the sympathies on these true penny stocks I noticed are playing out. Multiple ways to play them. Now, Kraken was also a first bounce day, and I promised I'd get into that. So let's look at that real quick. What's a first bounce day? Well, we see a stock that makes a multi 100% move from its lows straight up, basically. It's got to be a multi-day move, so not just a 1 day spike. It's got to have 1 day of spike. And you would say this is a red day. Yeah, but look, it opened right here and then had a big spike. So that's 2 days of spikes. And what was the distance? 6 cents, 60 cents. So that's like 1,000% gain. I'm not even sure. Something like that. A huge gain. And then, so you have that, right? And then you want to see at least 2 red days in a row. And you don't really want to see more than 3. So 2 to 3 days is what you want to see. So we have the 2 big run-up days, 1 red day, 2 red days. Now we're expecting the first bounce. And we usually want to see a gap up, first high day break. But it gapped down, right? Way too far and to play this high day break. However, once burst took off, again, we should have assumed that Kraken should be a sympathy, especially with the fact that it has that first bounce day chart to go with it. All right, everybody, I hope you enjoyed this study session, and buckle up because we're going to have another one every single day. All right, everybody, I'll see y'all tomorrow. Take it easy.